Alright guys, so welcome to a new series. This is going to be how to make portal maps. So in this first tutorial, I'm just going to go over the basics of everything. So I'm going to be using Hammer++ for this. Everything will work in regular Hammer though, so you don't have to worry about it. Now, this doesn't look right. Hold on, let me see. I don't know. There's the 3D view here. It looks odd, but maybe it's just a bug. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So, the first thing with portal level design is that you're going to want to have your snap set to 16 units, because that's just like the standard. So I'm going to start off with this 256 by 256 by 16 little platform here. Oh, that's what the problem is. I don't have it. There we go. I had it on 3D flat instead of 3D shaded textures polygons. So in Portal, I mean, with today's computers, this isn't a big deal, but how Valve made all the maps is they only had textures on visible surfaces. So if you don't know, in Hammer you can change the textures for each face by going to this face edit tool, which is this little brick and then like blue bricks and then green bricks. Now you can click browse here and browse for all different types of textures. So if you didn't know, if you go to keywords, you can type in portal and keywords, and this is all the portal textures. So say I want to use this floor. This is the floor texture that's used for every concrete floor in the game pretty much. Now if I right click, it'll set the texture. If I left click on it, it'll set it to a different texture. So I can left click to get no draw and then do that. Or I can left click on this and then right click on this and do that. So it's not really important because computers today, they can, I mean, I don't even know if the source engine actually renders this stuff, but it's best just to have all no draws on the outside because that's just how they've always done it. That's how most people have done it. So yeah. Now the first thing I'm going to teach you is how to make a floor button. So the floor button are those red buttons that you always see in Portal, the what are they called? Super colliding super buttons. Aperture science super colliding super button. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Now, this first step is optional, and if you're putting the button on a metal floor, actually still do this, but so you're going to want to set your snap to 8, and you can change. I'm assuming in this tutorial that you've used Hammer before and you're at least slightly comfortable with it, but you can change your snap by pressing the square bracket keys. So the left one makes it smaller, the right one makes it bigger. So you're going to want to set your snap to 8, and then you're going to make a 128 by 128 by 8 platform like this, just like that, and then tie it to a func detail. So if you don't know, you press Control T or you click this to entity button. I've already made an entity on it, so yeah, func detail, just like this. Oops, accidentally. There we go. Now we're going to use this texture toggle thing again. We're going to find there's two of these. There's decal hazard orange 03B and there's hazard orange 03B. I don't know if there's much of a difference, but I wouldn't use the decal one since you're not making a decal, and you're just going to apply that to the sides of this, just like that. Now you don't have to make this platform, but again, I'm just doing this like exactly how they do it in Portal 1, so I'm using all of their like rules for building basically. Now we're going to switch over to this entity tool. We're going to put an entity down on top of it. Actually, we're going to make the corner overlays first. So switch to this apply overlays tool. It's like a brick with green on top of it. Now we're going to search for a texture. We're going to use this overlay button accent texture, and you can just place that down 4 times like so. Now for each of these, we're going to position it and then rotate it if it needs to be rotated. So like this one needs to be turned, so we'll turn it. This one also needs to be turned, so we'll turn it. And this one needs to be turned, so we'll turn it. Just like that. This view is kind of bugging out. I don't know why it's doing that, but in the game it'll look normal, so don't worry about it. Although actually it might be doing that because it's like in the texture, but no, I don't think it is. I think it's just doing that in Hammer. Hammer's weird like that sometimes. But anyway, going back to this thing, this entity we just placed down, we're going to make it a prop static. So prop statics are used for props that are, they're just going to sit there and they're basically just going to be little details in the map. But these are like details that actually matter, so we're not going to use a prop detail, we're going to use a prop static because I don't really know the difference. I'm okay with Hammer. I'm not like great at it or anything, but I've made enough stuff. I know my way around Hammer basically. Anyway, we're gonna set this prop static to button base reference.mdl, and then we're just gonna center it like so. So you see we have the bottom of the button now. And you can see there's this side with the arrow. You're gonna want to rotate that so that the player will like see it when they, like basically whatever direction you think the player would be facing it. When the player enters the room, have it so it faces it. Again, this is one of those things, doesn't matter, but that's how Valve did it, and that's how I'm gonna do it because that's how Valve did it. Now we're going to go over here in this little primitives section. We're going to switch object to cylinder, make sure it's an 8-sided cylinder. Then we're going to set our snap to 4. We're going to make 60 by 60, and then we're just going to center it like so. Sometimes it can be a bit strange to center, but I think you actually have to switch it to 2 to actually center it like that. And then by 4, I think. Or no, by 8. 60 by 60 by 8. And then we're just going to set it like that. You're going to want to texture it with no draw. I accidentally textured it with a overlay button accent. But just texture it with no draw, like so. So it should look just like that. Now we're going to tie this to an entity, and we're going to do func door. I know that sounds odd, but a func door, it's not just a door, it's anything that moves up and down, left and right, side, like, so yeah. And you can name this whatever you want, but I'm going to name this room 1 floor button door. Now these values actually matter. 25 delay before reset, -1, that way it stays down. Move direction, just click on move direction, click this 0 right here and click down. So now it'll just move it down. You could type 9000, but it's just easier to click down. Then that's it. So that's good. Touch opens, it doesn't matter, but you shouldn't be able to touch the button or the door because the prop should be in the way, but just disable it anyway. Make sure all these flags are unchecked really. Now we're going to create another entity. This one's going to be a prop dynamic. Now the reason we use prop dynamic here is because this is going to be the top of the button, and the top of the button moves up and down, so we need to be able to, first of all, we're going to parent it to the door. You can use this eyedropper, or you can just type in the name, it doesn't matter. Then world model, we're going to set this to button top reference, just like that. Now I'm going to put it into position. It should be just like this, so it's just above the button. You see there's just this little sliver of space here. Now the button base prop, you see its bit draw rule is 0, 180, 0. We'll set it to be the same. It doesn't really matter, but hey, it's how Valve did it. Now that's everything you need to do actually. So now we're going to create a trigger, so we're going to use the trigger texture. Now this trigger, it's going to be 48 by 48 by 2. So 48 by 48. And we're just going to center it on top of the button. And then 2 tall. This is going to be sitting on top of the button like that. Make sure you switch back to block from cylinder, because it's happened to me too many times where I forget to do that and I accidentally make a cylinder. Now this trigger, we're going to tie it to a trigger multiple. And a trigger multiple is just a trigger that can be activated multiple times. Crazy, I know. Now I'm going to call this room 1 floor button trigger player, because this is the trigger that gets activated when the player walks on the button. Now in flags, clients is the only thing that should be checked, but just make sure nothing else is checked. Now I think that's all we need to do for this. Yeah. Now we're actually going to switch back to cylinder, and we're going to create an 8 by 8 by 2 cylinder, right centered like this. 8-sided cylinder again. Now this is the trigger that activates from the box pressing it. Now the reason why it's so much smaller is because the box could be just touching barely this edge and it's not even really on the button, and the whole button will still be pressed down. This basically ensures that it's in the middle of the button, which realistically would be the only way to push the button down. Now we're going to try this to another trigger multiple, and we'll set its name to floor button trigger box. Just like that. Now in flags, uncheck clients and check physics objects. Then we're actually going to create an entity off to the side here. You can put it anywhere in the map, it doesn't matter. And this entity is going to be a filter activator name. So what a filter activator name does is, if you have something that can have a filter passed into it, for example, a trigger, right here, filter name, this filter is going to only allow things that are named a certain thing to activate the trigger. So we're going to call this filter boxes, not boxers, boxes. You can call it whatever. And then filter name, it has to be box. Now technically it doesn't have to be box, but it just has to be whatever your cube entities are going to be named, which the standard is just to name them box. So that's why I say that it has to be named box. Now in this box trigger, we're going to set the filter name to filter boxes. Now we're going back to the trigger player, and in the outputs section, we're going to add 2 on start touch outputs, just like so, and 2 on end touch all outputs, just like so. Now the first on start touch is going to be for the door, and it's going to be open is the input on it. And the second start touch is going to be on the box trigger, the trigger, and then it's going to be to disable it. That way you don't activate both of them and it like glitches out and does some weird thing. Now on end touch all, again, going to be door, but this time close. And the second one, the box trigger, and as you might have guessed by now, enable. Now we're going to do just about the same thing, so I'm actually just going to copy these and paste them into here, but we're just going to change trigger box to trigger player for both of these, and that's it. So now we're going to create 2 ambient generics. So if you don't know what ambient generics do, they basically create ambient noises, like noises that don't really matter. So we're going to create 2 of these, just like so. The first one, we're going to name it room 1 floor button down. Second one, we're going to name it room 1 floor button up. Now for the sound name for the down, we're going to do portal with a capital P dot button underscore down. Now if you listen to it, you can hear that it's the sound that plays when the button's pressed down. Now all the way down here at source entity name, we're just going to click this little eyedropper and click on the door. You could also just type in the door name, but I find it easier to use the eyedropper like that. Now we're going to do just about the same thing, but portal dot button underscore up, which is the up sound. Then click this little eyedropper, click on the door, and yeah. Now here on the door, we're going to go to outputs. We're going to say on open button up sound, or sorry, button down sound. That's my bad. Play sound, and then on close the up sound, play sound. Now we're gonna add a little light inside of the button, like right centered like this, right here, and we're gonna change it. It's just gonna be a regular light, not a light dynamic or a light spot or anything. You don't have to give it a name or anything, but the brightness is going to be set to 251, 159, 57, 30. Then brightness HDR, this doesn't really matter, but we're going to set it to 251, 159, 57, 20. That's it. Now, if you're not really familiar that much with Hammer, you have to protect every entity from the void, which is, hold on, I'm just going to choose a random wall texture, but the void is this, I actually made a cylinder. The void is this everything out here. So basically, if any entity can make its way, it's like if an entity casts a line out in every possible direction, and one of those lines, like for example this trigger entity, it casts a line out here and it goes through this tiny little crack in the void, it's now touched the void and the map has a leak and it won't be able to render properly. So you need to make sure to box everything in. Make sure to switch this back to block. And just like that. Now I'm just going to copy this to all the walls. And then add a ceiling. Now I'm going to change the ceiling texture to be the actual ceiling texture. And then just as we did with this one, I'm just going to go around and put no draw on the outside of all of these as well. Just because that's how it's always been done. And that's how I'm going to do it. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add another prop, and this is going to be a prop physics. The world model is going to be metalbox.mtl, MDL, not MTL. And then I'm going to name it box. Just like how I named the what it filters in this. And by the way, if you want to have a companion cube, it's the same model, but you change skin to 1, and you can see it's now a companion cube. I'm going to keep it as a regular cube though. And you want to make sure that your physics objects are all at least slightly off the ground, like even if it's just so slightly off the ground that you can't even tell, you want to make it slightly off the ground, because if you don't, it can get stuck in the ground and then the player won't be able to like pick it up. Yeah, so just make it a bit off the ground at least. And then we need a place for the player to spawn in, so we'll add a player spawn, and I'll give him the portal gun because why not. So we'll add another entity, and this will be weapon portal gun. and then we'll just set it right next to the player, just like that. And I'm going to save this. Okay, so if it's a map this small, I'll just do normal on all of these. And then these are the game parameters I like to do. I like to do width 1280, height 720, windowed, and then dev. So these just make the game size 1280 by 720. That way it doesn't take up the whole screen, and then windowed, that way I can switch between it and Portal easily, and then dev just will it shows you more stuff about like errors and stuff basically. So I'll just click OK, and then it'll run. And you can see in here I have my portal gun. I can put this cube on the box and it activates. So there's how to make a portal, or not a portal, what? There's how to make a button, a floor button in Portal. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and see you guys in the next video. I don't know if my next actual video is going to be another TF2 one, or if it'll be another Portal one. Just whatever I feel like. But yeah. See you.